Okay, good morning, Dan. So in this video, we are going to cover how repetitive figures can cause excitement in our improvisation, but moreover, I have some documentation on this that I'll be sending you, but what I'm about to, I guess, display on the video to some degree contradicts what is on the document. So let me clarify what I mean by that. The repetitive figure, these are like cells that repeat. So if you have ever played or heard the playing of something that resembles this, so, like figures of 3, you can do it in figures of 4. So all of those things, and of course 5s, things like that, 6s, 7s, 9, if you do 8, it's just scale, right? It sounds a little bit classroomy, right? It doesn't have that little zip that the other ones have. But anyway, that's the topic that we're discussing. But what's much more important than that is on the document, they're written out in what I would refer to as the kind of fingering templates that we've worked from before. And all that is fine, but it's not, how would I say this? It's not the easiest way to play them. It's inefficient. It is not efficient to play them that way. So what we're in search of in this video, and what I strongly recommend, is to immediately get out of that or get away from that. I think there's a small period of time that you kind of need to read through the document and kind of practice it. And what you're going to find is the picking is all screwed up. It just has no continuity whatsoever. But beyond that, it causes a lot of string crossing, both in the right hand and the left hand, of course. And so that's the part that makes it inefficient. So what we're trying to do is trying to learn the actual shapes in a way that, how can I explain this? Learn the shapes in a way that dictates a major cell from a minor cell and a diminished cell. We only have 3 cells, right, in that major. If we're working with 3 or 4 notes like that, we have the major. Well, if we're working with 3, we have the major, the minor, and the diminished. If we're working with 4, it's 4 notes, so they're like major 7, dominant 7, et cetera, et cetera. But before we go down that rabbit hole, let's keep it simple and let's stick to 3s. So just, these are groupings of 3 notes that repeat diatonically, which means within the key. And moreover, they are simple pick patterns, and they are simple things to recognize in the left hand. However, they are extremely linear, which is really the ticket here. This is what we're after. So I'm going to start. Excuse me. Good morning. I'm going to start. This is yesterday was day 3 in a row of golf. But I shot an 80, by the way. But anyway, story for another day. So if we're in the key of C, and I'm going to do these. You can do them on any group of strings. We'll talk more about that in the real-time lesson. But I'm going to do these on the D string and the G string. So if I take 3 notes and I start from the note F, you'll notice there's 2 notes on the lower string and 1 note on the upper string. So that being said, we can view this as it's the 4 chord in the key, C, D, E, F, right? Therefore, it's F major. So now we take away from this that a major fingering looks like that. Well, the next chord, if you want to call it that in the scale, would be G major. And so therefore, it should look the same as this. And it does. Well, now we're going to what would be the 6th chord in this key, which we know is minor. And it's the 2 minor, so it has a natural 9. So we're going to go. So we can deduce now that the major looks like, sorry, and the minor looks like. And I'm doing these with all downstrokes. This is where we're going, so let's continue that. So 4 chord, major, 5 major, 6 minor, 7 diminished. So 4, or major, major, minor, diminished. That was 7, right? The diminished chord occurs at the 7th degree in the major scale. So now we are at the 1 chord, which we know is major. So it's going to look like the other majors. All right. So 1, this is really our starting point in the key, right? We started down at the 4 chord. So this is now 1. We know the minor looks like this because we learned it out off of A minor. Now we have the 3 minor, which we've not come across yet. Well, the 3 minor has a flat 9 because Phrygian is 1 flat 2, right? There's a lot of reasons, and you know all of them probably by now. And now we're back to F major. So we finished the whole cycle. So let me start down here again. That is so much more of an efficient way to do that than to go too much string crossing, too much picking, too clinical sounding, even if I use hammers. It sounds a little bit better, but it doesn't have the fire, and it doesn't have the kind of the ability to really light it up. Once you kind of work with this for a little while, you can see how these can be pretty quick, pretty efficient, and the picking is really easy. You can get away with 3 downstrokes, you know. Most people can do that. If you want to hammer the first one, you can do that as well. I like the picking personally. It's good to train your hand to be able to kind of get to some speedy stuff kind of quick. Okay, so that's our concept. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop down 1 string set. We were on strings 4 and 3. I'm going to now go to strings 5 and 4. And I have a couple of reasons for doing that. One of which is we will now be starting on the tonic or on the root, which is great. So here's my C major. Oh, that's funny. It looks just like F major. Of course it does, because we're still on string groupings that are separated via tuning by fourths. Therefore, the fingerings will look the same. So we have C. That's a major. Now we have a D minor. We know the minors look like this because we learned it from A minor. Which that's a whole nother thing when you start combining the string sets and skipping intervals. That's really cool, but that's developmental stuff you can kind of do on your own, things that are pleasing to your ear. So major, minor because it's the 2 chord, 3 minor, which has a flat 9, 4 major, 5 major, 6 minor, that's the one with the natural 9, right? Diminished, and then back to the tonic. Sorry. So that's a great way to learn some linearity, right? So all this holds true for all the string groupings that are separated by fourths, which is E and A and D and G, and B and E, or 6 and 5, 5 and 4, 4 and 3, and then 2 and 1. So just that tiny experiment. Here's F major, G major, A minor, B diminished, C major. You can see where that could come in handy, or if you skip around with them. Sorry. So all of that stuff can kind of be super fun. But what happens when we get to the string grouping that's separated by a third, or strings 3 and 2? Well, if you notice, for everything we did thus far, we had 2 notes on a string followed by 1 note on a string. Two notes, then 1 note. So when we get to strings 3 and 2, do we still want to do that? Well, the answer is the majors look like this. So that's C, F in this key, and G. But is it efficient? Does that work? Does that work? Well, let's find out. So, C major, D minor with the natural 9, E minor with the flat 9, F major, G major, A minor with the natural 9, B diminished, so there's a flat 9, and we're back to C. So as it turns out, it does work out okay that way. So we don't really have to worry about changing the fingerings. Now, this would not normally occur, because if we go to 4 notes, it's not going to work out that way. So anyway, this is a launch pad for you to experiment with and have some fun with and be able to get from one place to another. Whoops, sorry. So that type of thing. And of course, these are all work backwards as well. Which are really fun. For that, I'm using a sweep. So kind of, you can do them that way, like, it's kind of cool. So let that be a little launch pad for you, and we'll cover this in the lesson.